Hi everybody, my name is Steph and this is Dan, and we want to welcome you to LifePoint Church Online.
Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. We're going to have an awesome day, but church is about a whole lot more than just a video, so we'd actually like to connect with you.
You can do that at lifepoint.org.au/connect.
Fill in your details and someone will give you a call. Church will be starting really soon. Have a great day.
Hey there, welcome to LifePoint Church Online. Today we're really excited to be starting our new series, The Heaven Promise, looking at the truth about life to come. I'm really excited for this series as we go into the Bible and answer some of those big questions that many of us have asked about heaven. What do we actually look like there? What do we do there? What is heaven all about? And this is especially exciting because in a year of so much unknown, and where the future can seem a little bit scary sometimes, we have this amazing promise that while we may not know what tomorrow is going to bring, we actually know what's going to happen at the end. We know how the story is going to end. What an awesome comfort that is. But before that, a few quick announcements about things coming up soon. So this month it is October. Who can believe that it's already October? And we have a new Acts 2 challenge for the month of October, which is to invite someone you know along to one of our groups, events, or a Sunday service. What an awesome challenge. Just hang out with a friend at one of our awesome events. And one of the best things to invite a friend along to is the Alpha program, which is kicking off in just over a week's time on a Wednesday night. If you want to register, it's not too late. You can head to the website for more details about that. Otherwise, I'd love to pray now as we kick off our new series. So Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come to your word and to hear about this promise that we have of a future that is full of joy, is full of just great things, Lord, with you in heaven, God. So we just pray that as we go to your word today, that you could, through Dan, teach us something new, give us hope and expectation for what's to come. So we pray these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Hey guys, I'm so excited about this series. I just cannot wait to talk about the heaven promise. I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time, and I think right now in this cultural moment, it's the perfect time to be thinking, to be waiting, and to be longing for heaven. I don't think we talk about this enough. In fact, our culture doesn't talk about this at all. I was very surprised this week to be reading an article interviewing an actor. Main Wyatt is his name. He's an awesome actor. And at the end of the article, they asked this question. They said, so Maine, what do you reckon happens after we die? I'm like, what the? No one ever asks that in Aussie culture. And he says, 6 months ago, I had an existential crisis. What am I doing with my life? I'm going to die. What's going to happen? I push through that. Whenever I'm busy, I don't think about it. I have anxiety about it when I'm not doing anything. So he goes on to say that he just has to stay busy. And I reckon that's pretty indicative of how Aussies treat the whole question of the afterlife, the whole question of what happens after we die. I'm not sure, it's weird, it's scary, and let's just keep busy. Let's just focus on the now, worry about tomorrow later, and just, I have no idea. A lot of Aussies do actually believe, apparently, in some kind of heaven or afterlife where the good people go and the bad people don't get in. Hopefully that's a very small group. But we don't think about it much. I'm a pastor, so I get to go to funerals, which is a real privilege and honour. Obviously really sad as well. And it's one of the few times that Australians come up to me and they say, hey, thanks, it's just, yeah, I've been really thinking about that recently. But I know that they'll stop thinking about it quickly. I see it happen all the time. In fact, even if they do think about it, they feel like they can't talk about it. And this can even happen in the church. Even Christians who historically have been so focused on heaven, have written songs about heaven and thought about heaven and longed and waited for heaven. I think right now, I don't hear it spoken about in church. I don't hear Christians often thinking about heaven. It seems a bit weird. It seems a bit strange to talk about heaven too much, to be longing for heaven. I was reading a commentary couple of months ago. Commentary just like a book about the Bible, like some Bible scholar nerd has decided to research it and think about it and read it a lot and writes these books. And I was reading a commentary because I'm a bit of a nerd myself, and this guy said, look, the biggest difference he thinks between the early church, the New Testament church, and the church today, it's the same church, really, but the biggest difference is a lack of eschatological expectation. Eschatological, which is a big word that just means the end. Now, we don't need to know these weird words, but what he's trying to say is that we don't seem to long for heaven like the New Testament church did. It was a big deal for them. 2 Peter 3 says, but according to his promise, we are waiting for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. Finally, rightness will happen, and they were longing and waiting for it. Paul writes from prison, quite famously, if you know anything about the Bible, he says, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. To die is gain. If I am to go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labour to me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I'm torn between the two. Imagine being torn between life and death. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. But it's more necessary for you that I remain in the body. He's talking to a church in Philippi. He's trying to say, look, it's a win-win for me. And I only want to be here to help you. In fact, I just cannot wait to die and be in heaven with Christ forever. We think people like that are weird these days. I talked to Jason, Pastor Jace, my good friend, and he often says this, and it seems like a bit of a weirdo sometimes. He says, death is gain, Dan, I can't wait to die. And it seems morbid, it seems obscene, it seems weird, but actually, if you look at the New Testament, that's normal. Jace is normal. Other people are not normal if you look at the New Testament. We need actually to be a people that long for heaven. How come we don't as much anymore in the church, especially in the West? You might have your own reasons. Have a think. Why don't we talk and think about heaven much these days? I think one, we don't long as much for heaven because it can be seen as escapism. It can be seen as like, you've got your head in the clouds. What about today? What about now? I think it's a healthy thing sometimes as followers of Jesus to say we're not focused on, dying and going to heaven one day. We're focused on bringing heaven now. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven here. We just did a whole series about living as an apprentice right now. That's a good thing, but maybe sometimes it goes a little bit too far. I think we're a bit scared of things being weird. Like people that talk about heaven a lot can seem weird. There's weird books about it that aren't based on the Bible. There's bad theology. There's bad ideas about heaven. And sometimes we look at the whole thing and go, I don't know. I've got no idea. So let's just worry about just everything else but what's going to happen when we die. A big reason too is that our lives are so good. You might have thought of that yourself. Like, it's almost like our lives are heaven in many ways now. Never in history has it been so good, Like I know it's 2020 has been an awful year, but you've got to admit, you can still go to your fridge and there's what many people throughout history and throughout the world right now would call a smorgasbord, would call a heaven. You're safe, most of you. Your lives are comfortable, most of you. You can plan your lives. Not just plan tomorrow. Steph and I were talking the other day about what we're going to do when the kids all finish school. My last kid will finish school in 2037. And this is weird, but we were like, well, let's go on a big holiday in 2038. We can do that because we have almost heavenly lives. It's hard to long for heaven when you're longing to go to Noosa, which is kind of like heaven, if we're going to be honest. I remember a guy was in my car once. He's from Uganda, and I was driving him around. He's coming out to our church to talk about the great work that we were helping him do over in Uganda, educating young boys. And he just kept looking at the road, kept looking at the houses. And I'm like, oh, what are you looking at? And he said, it's the cars. He said, everyone's got a car. Every house has got a car. I can't believe it. And I said, well, actually, to be honest, you can't see most of the cars. It's worse than you thought. There's actually cars inside in the garages that you can't see. And he said, what's a garage? I said, oh, where people put their cars so they don't get wrecked, keep them inside. And it's like, wow. So in Australia, even the cars have houses. And I was like, wow, yeah. I never thought of that. Our lives, compared to most of the world, are heavenly. But we know that there's still something missing, don't we? Look at this year. Our lives aren't heaven. There's pandemic, there's disease, there's things that we can't control. And if you think about it, the heavenly places of affluent Western culture, anxiety is up, and depression is up, and suicide is up, and loneliness is up, disconnection is up. What's going on? It's because no matter what we do on this earth, no matter how good, and we should make it good for people, we should make it safe for people. But it seems even when we solve these problems, it's still not enough. It's still not right. We are actually longing for something more. That's what I want to do in this series, is to create a biblical, beautiful, exciting picture of heaven. A reality check, really, for what it's really like, so that we might be people like the first church. That's our challenge this year, to become like the first church, that genuinely long for heaven. Guys, I think the biggest reason we don't long for heaven is because we just don't know enough about it. We just don't have a biblical view in our head of what this will actually be like, of what we will do there, of how we get there, of what will happen on the first day. So we're going to be talking about heaven over the next 6 weeks. Here's what it's going to look like. Today I'm talking about longing for heaven. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the two heavens. There's actually seemingly two types of heaven in the Bible. There's a current heaven and there's a future heaven. And there's some key differences between them. All right, there's a current heaven and there's like a new earth, a resurrection. And we need to understand both of these from the Bible. So we're going to be looking at that next week. Not many people, I think, understand that distinction. And then after that, we've got waiting for heaven. There's so many warnings in the Bible about be alert, be ready, keep your lantern on, because we're going to be ready for the bride to come back, for Jesus to come back. What does it mean to be actively ready for heaven? Then we're going to be talking about what heaven will be like. All right, so let's get a picture about this. Let's get excited. What are we going to be doing? Am I going to have a body? Am I going to be like, stringing a harp? Is it going to be one big church service? That seems very boring to some of you guys. Or are we going to have jobs? Are we going to have our families? We're going to be talking about that and what that means for us today. And then we're going to talk about who gets into heaven and how do I know I'm going to heaven? How do I know I'm good enough to go to heaven? Who gets in? And then lastly, we'll wrap it up and I'm going to be talking about your top 10 questions about heaven, okay? I've already got a few. I've been talking to a few people already and I've gone online and see what the top questions people have about heaven. So we're going to just think about and look at the Bible and think about things like, are there pets in heaven? All right? Is there sex in heaven? A bit controversial. What about kids who die? Are they going to be older in heaven? What's my body going to be like in heaven? What about near-death experiences? Like, are these real? What do we do with this? What about people who never got a chance to hear about Jesus? Do they get to go to heaven too? If you have a question, all right, I don't just want to answer questions from the internet. I want to answer your questions. We'll try anyway. My email address is dansweetman@lifepoint.org.au. It's on the screen now. Please email me a question about heaven that you might have, and we'll just do our best, hey? The heaven promise. It's going to be an awesome 6 weeks. I encourage you, don't miss it. We're going to be online and we're going to be meeting in church as well. Because when we miss out on a biblical and firm view of God's promise of heaven, we're actually not just in danger of missing out one day, we're in danger of missing out real life now. Like when you don't know what's coming, you don't know how to live today. Here are some of the dangers, I think. And I just want to finish with this. The dangers of an undeveloped and poor understanding of heaven. Number one, it makes Christianity just a philosophy. Do you know what I mean? Just a good way to live your life, a way that's going to help you, that's going to be good for you, that's going to make you a better person today. And Christianity does that really well. Seriously. Like, that's the thing about the truth. It works. Like, I've seen that change my life. It's changed so many people's lives that I see around me. But that's not at the core what Christianity is. At the core, it's a supernatural thing. It's about the revelation of Jesus Christ who came and he died and he rose again and then we rise with him in resurrected bodies and we're going to be living in eternity forever with him. It's not so much about everything that's going to happen now, although now is so important and so vital. It's just the beginning of our lives, which are going to go forever. So we don't want Christianity to become a nice idea. We want it to become what it really is. A resurrected life, being born again into a new city, a new family, a new kingdom. An undeveloped understanding or not longing for heaven, it can make God seem unfair. We can look around and we can think, oh, I've done this before, I'm sure you have. How could God let this happen? You hear about something happening to someone. You hear a story about what's happening in the world, like slavery, trafficking, just the starvation, war, pandemics. And you think, God, why would you do this? When you know about heaven, you realize, actually, he's going to say no one day. One day, God's going to go, a big nope. No more. No more rape. No more murder. No more disease. No more disability. No more pain. No more crying. Number 3, if we don't long for heaven, we can be anxious about missing out. We're going to talk a bit more about this in a few weeks. But we can feel like we've got not enough time, we've got regrets. We have to quickly go now because now's all we have. And really in John 14, it says that I've prepared many rooms for you. You're not going to miss out. Number 4, it makes sacrifice difficult. It makes us so needy to what the world has that we can't give it up. Because we're like, if I give it up, that's it. I'm not going to get it back again. I'm not going to be able to give up my rights. I'm not going to be able to give a cool glass of water. As it says in Matthew 10, okay, maybe we can give it water away because that's free. But it's hard to give up your time and your money and your resources to others, which is what Jesus calls us to do, and it's what he did for us. 1 Timothy chapter 6, he says, as for the rich in this present age, and if you're listening to this, he's talking to you, I reckon, charge them not to be haughty, prideful, nor set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches. Set their hopes on today, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, and to be generous, sacrificial, ready to share, thus storing up treasures for themselves. Where? In heaven. As a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. You can take hold of real life today if you understand the real life in your future. Number 5, it makes suffering insurmountable. It makes it seem insurmountable. It makes us terrified of pain, of death. I think our world's got a real problem with suffering right now because we're so focused on this world that it's like, it just makes no sense. If someone has an awful life of suffering and then dies, there's no redemption, there's no, what's the point? And lastly, it makes us give up. When we don't long for heaven, we can so easily give up on our faith. We can give up on love. We can give up on helping others. We can give up on following Jesus. In 1952, an incredible lady named Florence Chadwick, she's the first woman to swim the English Channel both ways. I've been across that channel in a ferry and it's ridiculous to think someone could actually swim it both ways. She had this new idea. She's going to swim from Catalina Island to California, which is a very, very long way. I'm not sure how long. But she swam for about 15 hours. But after 15 hours, she was exhausted. Imagine for swimming for like more than a day. And she just said, I can't do this anymore. A big fog came across the water and she was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done, I've failed, pull me out. I give up. So they pulled her out of the water. But when they pulled her out, the fog dissipated. And on the boat, they saw she was less than a kilometre away from the shore. Later on in the press conference, they were talking to her and she said, all I could see was the fog. If I could have seen the shore, I would have made it. We're going to focus on the shore in this series, guys. We're going to focus on what is to come, because that will change how we live our lives today. Setting our sights not on what we can see, but what is unseen. Colossians 1 says, set your hearts on the things above. As in, set your heart. As in, like, it's not going to happen automatically. You need to do something to actually change. Change your mind, change your heart, and set your heart on the things above. It's not easy to long for heaven. C.S. Lewis says, most of us find it difficult to want heaven at all, except insofar as heaven means meeting again our friends who have died. One reason for this difficulty is that we have not been trained. Our whole education tends to fix our minds on this world. Another reason is that when the real want for heaven is present in us, we do not recognize it. We haven't been trained, and when we do long for heaven, which I think we do every day, we're not trained to recognize what that want is. Guys, you're longing for completeness. You're longing to be with God forever. You're longing for God's promise to come and make everything right in your life. And every time you want a coffee, or you miss your loved ones, or you miss home, or you want to go on a holiday, every time you long for anything, it's actually a desire for God. It's a longing for things to be made right. It's a longing for heaven. And this is just the beginning. I want you to picture two guys, all right? Picture two blokes. We're going to call them Bruce and Barry. And Bruce and Barry have lost their jobs during COVID. They're looking for new jobs in 2021. They're on Job Seeker right now, but it's going to run out. And they get offered a job. Some guy comes along and says, right, Bruce and Barry, I've got a Portaloo cleaning business. Dirty work, but you've got a guaranteed contract for 1 year next year. He takes Bruce aside, said, Bruce, I'm going to pay you the minimum wage. So at the end of the year, you're going to get about $38,000, but I can't pay you till the end. All right, you're just going to have to make do. And at the end, I'm going to give you a check for 38 grand. He says, all right, yep, beggars can't be choosers, let's do it. And then he brings Barry in. He says, Barry, I'm going to give you at the end $38 million. All right? Barry's like, what? It's like, yep, 38 million. I'm not going to give it to you yet. You're going to get it at the end. So these guys set to work. Do you think they work differently? Of course they do. It's like watching two completely different situations play out. You know, you've got Bruce there, he's cleaning, going, this sucks. You know, it's just disgusting. It's awful. You know what Portaloos are like? Ugh. And you know, he says to Barry, mate, I can't do this anymore. After 3 weeks, he's like, I just want to quit. And Barry goes, it's not that bad. Looks over at Barry and he's cleaning it up. Come on. And every time Barry gets to a really bad Portaloo and opens it up and he thinks, do they know how to use a toilet? What are they doing? He just thinks for a second. $38 million. And he picks up his brush and he gets his gloves on and he just gets into it. Because what you believe is coming, what you know is coming, what your faith and hope is in, changes how you live today. Let's do it. I cannot wait for this series. Let's just listen to the words of Peter, Jesus' right-hand man, to close out. Maybe you want to close your eyes right now and we're just going to hear these words. Peter says, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you. This is real. Who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have to suffer grief and all kinds of trial. This life is just a little while. Heaven is forever. Thanks so much, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thanks for joining us for LifePoint Online. If you'd like to hear about more things happening in the life of our church, you can head to our website. Or if you'd like to connect in further to our community, we actually have an online Connect card. If you head to lifepoint.org.au/connect, you can fill out your details and someone will be in contact with you. One of the best parts of our church community is our groups. We've got life groups and tiny churches, so many little families that you can be a part of. And we just want to encourage you now, wherever you are, if you're watching this from home, wherever you are, we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to connect you into one of our groups. Just send us an email and we'll find the group that works for you. Otherwise, we're going to finish with a time of worship now. So thank you so much for joining us and we'll see you next time.
The my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. And I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah still and all alone. And oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Then on the first at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Don't trample death where is your sting. The angels roar for Christ the King. Sing your praise. And oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. No, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. And oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name for